Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much to be with us in this late hour. It's please sit down.
Sit down?
Yeah.
All right.
I want to say a few words and so I must confess that I feel privileged to introduce our keynote speaker from this afternoon. And I say these words not because the extraordinary career of Professor Robert Logan, which is Emeritus Professor at the University of Toronto in the Department of Physics, also is the Chief Scientist of Innovative Lab in the same university, also is the Editor-in-Chief of New Exploration, very known journal which is continued the work of Marshall McLuhan, originally Journal Exploration, which is extraordinary performance for academic journal. So the main point in this afternoon is this, we have the rarely chance to be contemporary with such guy, which is very closely collaborating with a legend in our domain. Professor Robert Logan worked in the 1974, I think, until the 18 years. Correct. Together with Marshall McLuhan, and more than that, is very close friend until the Marshall McLuhan passing away from us. So this is the main point of our meetings. And please enjoy to this type of encounter with such researcher in our life. Thank you very much, Professor Logan.
Pentru românești și oamenii, bună seara. For the rest of you, good evening. Okay. So my talk is called Semiotics from a Media Ecology Point of View, and Marshall McLuhan's notion that the medium is the message. Let's give you the abstract. Semiotics and media ecology are compared, and an attempt is made to reconcile semiotics and media ecology and translate the terminology of semiotics into that of media ecology and vice versa, that of media ecology into semiotics. An attempt is also made to create a bridge between these two closely related studies of communication, to create a hybrid study of the media ecology of semiotics and the semiotics of media ecology. It's an honor to be invited to give this keynote address to a gathering of semioticians. I am more of a media ecologist, having collaborated with Marshall McLuhan, than a semiotician, but I have published in Semiotica and other journals, and my focus has been on biosemiotics. For example, I co-authored an article with Stuart Kaufman and others entitled Propagating Organization and Inquiry, Making Use of Semiotics. I do not often address an audience of semioticians, and this will be the first time I've attempted to reconcile semiotics and media ecology. So, let me talk about co-authoring with Marshall McLuhan before I launch into my formal talk. I co-authored 2 articles with him and a book entitled The Future of the Library. I can provide some insights on how he worked and what it was like to collaborate with him. Alphabet Mother of Invention, our first article, grew out of a conversation that we had the very first day that I met McLuhan. I was organizing a seminar at the University of Toronto on future studies in 1974. And I recruited Professor Arthur Porter, a chairman of the Industrial Engineering Department. He called Marshall to invite him to join us and mentioned my name. McLuhan had heard about my course, The Poetry of Physics and the Physics of Poetry, and instructed Porter to send me over to the coach house to have lunch with him. I was very excited to be having lunch with such a famous scholar. We went into the cafeteria. We gathered our food on a tray. As soon as we sat down, he said to me immediately what I had learned with the poetry of physics. Well, I was sort of flabbergasted, and I said, well, I'm working on a problem. I'm fascinated by the problem posed by Joseph Needham in his book, The Grand Titration, of why abstract science began in the West, despite the fact that so much of technology originated in China. Are you listening, Mr. Fong?
You recognize my...
I propose that since monotheism and codified law were unique to the West, and that together they gave rise to the notion of universal law, that this might explain the Needham paradox. McLuhan nodded his head in agreement, and then asked me pointedly, what else do we have in the West that they don't have in China? I was totally intimidated by McLuhan, who seemed to be talking to me at 100 miles an hour. That's 160 kilometers for you Europeans. And I was unable to think, and I finally said, I give up. He smiled and said, the alphabet, of course. I let out the loudest groan, because I immediately saw where he was going. As I immediately recalled that he had showed the connection of the alphabet with abstract science and deductive logic in his books, Gutenberg Galaxy and Understanding Media. It all became so obvious. The alphabet serves as a model for analysis, classification, coding, and decoding. To use the alphabet to write, one must analyze each word, each spoken word, into its basic phonemes, and then represent each phoneme with a meaningless visual sign, a letter of the alphabet. So, writing with an alphabet is coding sounds into visual signs, and reading an alphabetic text is decoding the visual sign back into sounds. As far as classification goes, the alphabet allows every word and every name to be ordered alphabetically, as is the case in a dictionary. Taken all together, the alphabet promotes codification, classification, and analysis, the basic skills needed for abstract science and deductive logic. Realizing that our independent explanations for the rise of abstract science in the West complemented and reinforced each other, we combined our ideas and developed the hypothesis that the phonetic alphabet, codified law, monotheism, abstract science, and deductive logic were ideas unique to the West, they developed in a narrow geographic zone between the Tigris-Euphrates River and the Aegean Sea, within the very narrow time frame between 2000 BC and 500 BC. Codified law came from Mesopotamia, alphabet from the Sinai by the Kenites, the people mentioned in the Bible, that were coppersmiths. The Greeks came up with logic and abstract science, and the Hebrews in Israel came up with monotheism. So in a small geographic zone, small time zone, all these ideas developed and interacted with each other. We would claim that the phonetic alphabet played a particularly dynamic role within the constellation of events and provided the ground or framework for the mutual development of these innovations. The effects of the alphabet and the abstract, logical, systematic thought that it encouraged explained why science began in the West and not the East, abstract science, despite the much greater technological sophistication of the Chinese, the inventors of metallurgy, rockets, irrigation system, animal harnesses, paper, ink, printing, movable type, gunpowder, porcelain, and silk. Credit must also be given to monotheism and codified law for the role they played in developing the notion of universality, an essential building block of science. Right then and there, at our first meeting in the faculty cafeteria, we decided to write up these ideas and publish them as a research article with the title, Alphabet Mother of Invention, that McLuhan suggested. As soon as I left our lunch, I went home and wrote up the ideas we had discussed from the notes I took. I remember being very nervous because I was not sure McLuhan would take to the notion that the phonetic alphabet had helped the Hebrews to conceive of the notion of monotheism and the existence of God. I was worried it might offend his Catholic beliefs. I needn't worry, he was fine with the idea, basically accepted the paper, largely as I had written it, and it was accepted by Neil Postman, then editor of the journal, etc. I later expanded the article on my own into the book The Alphabet Effect after Marshall McLuhan's unfortunate passing in 1980. I was lucky to work with Marshall from 74 to 80. After his passing, I stopped my research in elementary particle physics and devoted myself exclusively to expanding his ideas to take into account personal computers, the internet, the web, social media, and all that followed in their wake. My last physics paper was published in 1982. So now I turn to my mission here, which is to talk about semiotics from a media ecology point of view, and talk about media ecology from a semiotics point of view, and try to create a bridge between these two. For the most part, unrelated studies of communication. I say unrelated because semioticians don't often talk about McLuhan, and McLuhan scholars don't often talk about semiotics. I hope by doing this, I will create an outline of a hybrid study that combines the best of these two grand academic traditions, which I will call the media ecology of semiotics and the semiotics of media ecology. I will consider a number of different semiotic points of view, the ones that you folks are all familiar with. Saussure with the signifier and the signified. Peirce with his representamen, the interpretant, and the object. Also the definition in Wikipedia, which says semiotics is a systematic study of sign processes and meaning making. Semiosis is an activity, conduct, or process that involves signs, where a sign is defined as anything that communicates something, usually called a meaning. And now to make things more interesting, here is my fourth point of view of semiotics, influenced by my media ecology experience. The sign entails four elements. The sign itself, the sender, the receiver, and the medium in which the sign is instantiated and is sent. The sign, the meaning of the sign, and the medium in which the sign is instantiated cannot be separated. They create a unified whole. Marshall McLuhan indirectly suggested that the study of sign processes is not just about the content of the sign, but also the medium in which the signs are instantiated, and that it's used to communicate the signs because, as he famously said, the medium is the message. The message of the alphabet, as we claimed, was monotheism, codified law, abstract science, and deductive logic. What he meant by the medium is the message is not that the medium is literally the message, but rather that independent of the signs, its content and its messages, a medium has intrinsic effects on our perceptions, which are its unique message. He once said, and I quote, "In a culture like ours, long accustomed to splitting and dividing all things as a means of control, it is sometimes a bit of a shock to be reminded that, in operational and practical fact, the medium is the message. This is merely to say that the personal and social consequences of any medium, that is, of any extension of ourselves, results from the new scale that is introduced into our affairs by each extension of ourselves or by any new technology." So for McLuhan, our technology are extensions of ourselves. He went on to say, "For the message of any medium or technology is the change of scale or pace or pattern that it introduces into human affairs." And we've seen how the new media, the digital media, and now AI are changing the pattern of human affairs. A medium has effects independent of its content, and these effects are largely subliminal. As McLuhan said, program and content analysis offers no clues to the magic of these media or to their subliminal charge. The same message or content of different signs have a different impact depending on the medium in which those signs are instantiated and communicated. In other words, sign processes entail both the content of the sign and the medium in which the sign is instantiated and communicated. This fourth point raises the interesting question of what defines a sign. Is it the content and the medium that transmits it and instantiates the content, or is it the content independent of the medium? I believe that a sign consists of both the content and the medium that communicates that content. So for example, the written word, stop, the spoken word, stop, and a traffic sign are three different signs. They all have the same dictionary definition, but they are three different signs. And even the spoken word stop can be a number of different signs. If the word is shouted, stop, whispered, stop, or said sarcastically, or said with the inflection of a question, stop, those are different signs, but they have the same dictionary definition. The written word stop in lowercase letters is different than the written sign in uppercase letters. Is the medium itself a sign? According to the definition of a sign, is anything that communicates a meaning. A medium without any content is not a sign, in that it does not have a meaning per se. It is merely the vehicle that carries or transmits signs, and the medium in which signs are instantiated. But it changes the effect, and hence the meaning of signs it transmits, or which are instantiated in it, and therefore semiotics, the systematic study of sign, of systematic study of sign processes, must take into account the effects of the medium on how a sign is perceived and interpreted. Hence, my assertion that the sign is both the content and the medium that transmits and instantiates it. Put simply, two signs, one written and one spoken, both with what seems to have the same content and both of which have the same dictionary definition, will have different effects, and therefore they are not the same sign. They're actually two different signs. We cannot have a sign without a medium that instantiates and transmits it. A Shakespearean play that is read, or the same plays staged, or a film that is made of the play are not the same set of signs. To review, a sign has two parts, consisting of its content and the medium that instantiates and transmits that content. They cannot be separated, and therefore, semiotics and media ecology, by this same criteria, cannot be and should not be separated either. Oh no. Okay. Excuse me while I drink this sign. I therefore propose that semiotics and media ecology are complementary studies of communication, one with a focus on the content of the sign, and the other on the medium of the transmission and instantiation of the sign. I further suggest that semiotics cannot only be enriched by media ecology, but without an understanding of the effects of the media transmitting and instantiating the signs, semiotics is incomplete. I don't mean to insult you. The meaning of a sign is not only its literal meaning or its content, but the medium that transmits and instantiates its content. The content of a sign and the medium transmitting and instantiating that content cannot be separated. Media ecology, on the other hand, which studies the effects of medium, must for its part understand the role of signs that a medium instantiates and transmits, and hence it will be enriched by semiotics. As things now stand, there are two separate fields of study that are both concerned with communication. I therefore suggest we need to explore the idea that the study of communication requires a merger of these two fields, since communication requires both signs and media, and the sign itself is defined in part by the medium that instantiates it. Let me repeat this idea. Communication requires a medium studied by media ecologists to transmit the signs studied by semioticians. And without the signs studied by semioticians, there would be nothing for a medium to transmit. And without a medium, a sign cannot signify. Signs are instantiated in a medium, and the content of a medium are signs. Without signs to propagate, there is no medium, and without a medium, there are no signs. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? The medium or the sign? My answer to this question is they co-emerged. A sign simultaneously a medium and a medium, or a medium and its content. Wait. A sign is simultaneously a meaning and a medium, or a medium and its content. 4, F-O-U-R, the numeral 4, I-V, 4 strokes. Are all written signs with basically the same meaning, but they are not interchangeable in terms of their effects. One could add that 4, F-O-U-R, the numeral 4 strokes, and I-V, as handwritten, printed, and seen on a TV screen, or seen on a movie screen, are each different signs. So the word 4, spelled out F-O-U-R, on a piece of paper, on a computer, in a movie, they are different signs. Someone's agreeing with me. I like the way you nod. That's you. A sign is simultaneously a meaning and a medium, or a medium and its content. In terms of Saussure's signifier and the signified, I suggest the signifier is the medium and the signified the content. And in terms of Peirce's representum, interpretant, and object, I suggest the representum is the medium, the interpretant is the literal meaning of the representum colored by the subliminal effects of the medium, and the object is the content. This is how I attempted to square the semiotic terminology of the sign with that of media ecology's terminology of the medium, the content, and the subliminal effects of the medium. How is semiotics used in media ecology? And how is media ecology used in semiotics? I do not know the exact answer to this question, but I can say it does not happen very often. So, my conclusion. I believe what is needed is a dialogue between semiotician community and the media ecology community. So the kind of invitation of Nicolas Sorin for me to address you has created a new research agenda for me. For those who wish to join me in this endeavor, I invite you to think about how to integrate media ecology and the notion that the medium is a message into your studies of semiotics. Please contact me with your thoughts at, and this is an important part of my message, my email address, I hope to hear from you, is logan@physics.utoronto.ca. I, for my part, will contact my colleagues with this challenge through our online open access journal, New Explorations, Studies, and Culture and Communication. This journal, which I founded, is a revival of the journal developed by Marshall McLuhan and Ted Carpenter entitled Explorations, Studies, and Culture and Communication that ran from 1957 to 1972 and can be accessed at the email address that you see on the screen. The journal can be accessed at that email address. And I invite you also to visit and consider submitting a contribution. So I hope some of you will look at our journal, think about how semiotics and media ecology can be connected, remembering that the medium is the message. And so I assign you this task, semiotically. And I now look forward to your remarks.
Thank you very much, Robert, for your insightful presentation. And I found very fruitful your idea to the emergence of media ecology and semiotics. Not actually for the idea of incompleteness of semiotics. You already know it's not about this, because Kurt Gödel already solved the problem in the beginning of the last century of completitude theorem of Kurt Gödel.
Say the name again?
Kurt Gödel.
Okay.
Problem of. So I invite you to comment and put question to Professor Logan. Yes? Please, Ramon.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
My question regards the terminology that McLuhan was using. And in particular, I was curious about the term he used, which, if I'm not wrong, was extension of the self and medium as prosthesis, right? So I was wondering whether you could provide us a little bit some insights about this, where the took this, where did he take this term and how he used or extension of the self, medium as an extension of the self, or medium as
extension of man.
Of man, yeah, or medium as
not politically correct. Back in his day, the word man meant human as well as male part of the species. Women are so special that they needed a special word for them called woman. So some people have attacked McLuhan because he used the term extensions of man. Please don't attack my friend. Okay, so this is an extension of my voice. This microphone. The hammer is an extension of my fist. This is what he meant by extensions. Now the hard part becomes, what about AI? What about computers? Well, before we had computers, there were people that ordered ideas logically. And that's all a computer does. A computer can only think logically. It cannot develop new ideas. It has no imagination. It has no desires. The notion, as my esteemed colleague pointed out the other day, I'm so nervous. I know your name. Kay. As Kay pointed out,
You have a very good memory.
what?
You have a very good memory. You know more names.
So, the idea that AI could take over and control us humans is absolutely ridiculous. Because it has no imagination. It has no desire. Each of you sitting in the room have desires. You have imagination. The computer has none. It's an extension of the alphabet. And in fact, what we did was, with computers, we simplified the alphabet from having 20 to 25 elements to 2, 0 and 1. So how can an ensemble of zeros and ones? There's not enough complexity in a system of thought that consists of only 2 words. Is this being recorded by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
I like these ideas I'm coming up with.
You will have them.
As I know your name, Nicolay, Soren. He used, every time someone would come up with a good idea, he would say, "You're right." And then I made a remark and I said, "I'm right." So, this is an important thing to understand. Did I answer your question? You're satisfied with it?
very much.
All right, now, I don't have to give you your money back, right? Any other questions?
Yes, any other question? David?
Yes, I really liked this. It's new to me, and I liked your account of like the alphabet, you know, and the ecology, the kinds of social formations and ways of thinking and logics that grow up around that. And and it's interesting in terms of, say, multimodality is often used to be what we call affordances. So what do things allow us to do? What kind of social relationships do things, media allow us to do? So a piece of paper or, say, a computer. But I was just wondering, what was worrying me was when you talk about the alphabet, we've kind of had time to see formations. Like, and I'm thinking about, say, now, like social media. You know, we're beginning to see some of the ecologies. But is it easier to do like in 10 years' time, 15, 20 years' time, maybe 100 years' time, that's the media ecology of social media. That was my question. Maybe you could help me to understand how to go forward with this.
The answer is very simple. Yes.
Okay.
No, you said it all.
It's easier in retrospect.
Your question, or your statement disguises a question.
No, but it's
right on the money.
Yeah, but it has to. Can you offer? I was hoping you'd have to go. Oh no, it's easy. It's easy to do it now. I was hoping that you'd have that answer, but no.
I never insult my audience. Are you going to let me get away with that? Don't you have any questions?
Anyway, I'm the last one. We have some little comments.
Oh, okay.
While I wait to another question from the audience. Yes, please.
Sorry for making you come back closer. My question
I
is...
approach the questioners so I can look at their lips without arms here.
I'm interested in your opinion as a specialist in physics and math. What do you think should be the status of semiotics in these fields? Should it be one of the disciplines which students study when they study physics and math? Do you see it as a kind of meta science for everything else, or not?
That's a difficult question because I'm not a semiotician. It's science that's very social because it deals with things that humans, how they communicate with each other. You know, I've been on both sides of what's called hard science and soft science. And the hard scientists are just as soft as you people are hard. They don't always agree. They sometimes go down tracks that don't work out. It isn't logic that allows scientists to develop ideas. Einstein said, logic won't get you very far, but imagination will. It's not a direct quote, but that was his idea. So imagination is an important part of science and semiotics, and there are no proofs in science, by the way, because everything is up for grabs. We have to continually make measurements to make sure that the scientific hypotheses we're working with are correct. So Newton was not wrong. Newton had a wonderful description of objects moving at velocities much less than the velocity of light. But once we entered the electric age, and electricity is an extension of humankind, we then had to deal with velocities, actual velocity of light. And that's why a new physics was needed. So with semiotics, it's going to evolve as well, because it has to deal with this monster called AI, which everybody is afraid of. There's a play called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I'm going to write a play called Who's Afraid of AI? I'm not. Yes, Kay.
Yes. Just picking up on that, I think it was a good question about, where semiotics placed in it all. Would you agree that maths and science is a semiotic construction?
That which science?
Maths and science is semiotic. I'll let you answer that.
One question at a time.
Okay.
Yes, of course mathematics is all about signs. Plus sign, minus sign, multiplication sign, division sign. X, the unknown, that's a sign. So there's another challenge for you semioticians. What is the semiotics of physics? Have you done that? Anyone done the semiotics of physics?
Sort of.
All right, second question.
I've sort of done the semiotics of maths, and basically, I mean, the reason we had a new description of the world, which was semiotic, but it came about not just from the alphabet, but it came from mathematical symbolism, which sort of evolved from language. But it was the connection with visuals. So you had the linguistic, the symbolic, and the image, and the ability to move between the two and expand meaning, which really was the basis of maths and science. So coming back to that question, I would say semiotics applies to every aspect of human existence, because it's not just the sign and its material basis, but there's, well, it is that, but there's all the different levels in between, like the human, the social aspect and everything. So in other words, humans live in this world of meaning and matter, the physical and the world of meaning, so everything to do with humans seems to be semiotic.
As Nikolai Soren would say, you're right.
So the last comment is actually an invitation for Professor Logan. Allow me, Professor, to read a short quote from your book. Darwin's notion of evolution apply not only to biology but also to the evolution of language, culture, economic, governance, technology and science, and therefore in a certain sense in epigenetic. While I believe that epigenetics is absolutely essential for understanding biological evolution, I also believe that neo-Darwinism still has value and explains many things. As a former quantum physicist, I have no problem simultaneously supporting the second way and the third way. So my invitation is, in the context of this kind of new monster, which is you call AI, can you complete and update this short quotation, please?
Well, what you said was right. Let me see your quotation.
Yes, it's your words.
It's so brilliant it doesn't need more. I really can't think of something, but I will undertake, if you email me that passage,
Absolutely.
I'll come up with an answer.
Perfect. And I express all together this your answer. Finally, I invite all you to make a picture together with Professor Logan, please.
Yeah, sure. With pleasure.